damage from having been put on a truck and shipped a few hundred miles. But if it's not physical damage, in most cases it's too wet. I should mention too that on many plants like your agapanthus, we talk about mulching many things for summer's heat and winter's cold. Don't mulch your agapanthus. If you put anything up on top of a plant like this, it's going to rot where the leaves come out of the kind of bulbous growth at the base. So these are things you can have the mulch up to the side, but don't ever dump mulch on top of this particular plant. Okay, agapanthus. Maybe talk about a couple of things for shade. Old-fashioned shrimp plant. I mean, everybody's grandmother grew this plant, and I still think it's one of the best plants that you can possibly grow. Just almost nothing goes wrong with this plant. The hummingbirds love it. It grows in shady spots. It only freezes back if we have an extremely cold winter. I've never seen any kind of insect problem on it. It's just a good plant. There is a new variety of this plant out called Fruit Cocktail that has some kind of chartreuse and lighter pink colors along with this darker pink. I find that it's a little wimpier grower and not quite as cold hardy as the original tough form, but still worth growing. There is also a form that they call yellow shrimp. It's ugly. I mean, the blooms are kind of a chartreuse yellow, but they don't fall off. They sit there and they turn a nasty brown color and get fungus growing on them. And it takes a lot of deadheading if you're going to do well with it. Now, what a lot of people confuse with this is the yellow flower plant they call lollipop or pachistache. And the blooms look somewhat like this, although they're pure yellow. You'll see them in bloom over there, and they have a little white flower that comes out of the middle. That is not shrimp. That is not related to shrimp plant. That is not perennial. That plant's going to freeze and die when it gets cold. So if somebody tells you, you hear the word yellow shrimp, that's not the plant they're talking about. And the yellow shrimp they're talking about, unless you're willing to deadhead it, I can promise you'll get very tired of it in the garden. But the red shrimp, it just has to be one of my favorite plants because it is so tough and so hardy and so little goes wrong with this plant.
Is that any good for pots?
And to me, it's not really showy enough. Again, if you're gardening in pots the size of whiskey barrels, if that's the only place you had to garden, yeah, I think it'd be great to put in a pot along with some other things.
Something else to
yeah.
How big does that get?
Normally, probably 24 inches. If it goes for 10 years with no freeze damage, it may get a little taller, but normally about 24 inches, probably about as big as it's going to be.
If it gets freeze damage, does it come back from the
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It came back after. I kind of judge, the ultimate cold hardiness. If it survived 1983, first year that we were in business, and everything froze and died, then it's a pretty hardy plant, and it came back gangbusters after, the 83 freeze. That does remind me that those of y'all that don't know us well, we opened on Mother's Day, be 28 years ago this Mother's Day. We kind of like to party on Mother's Day. If you've not been, how many of y'all have been to our Mother's Day get-togethers? Okay, tell the rest of everybody to come. George Gaitan, the guitarist, you hear me, on the radio, George will be here playing. We're going to do a change. In the past, we've always had Lonesome Louie here, and the girls especially just wanted a little bit different music. So this year, we're going to do George Gaitan for our Mother's Day party. We'll have our famous champagne punch and make all the homemade goodies and everything else. So put Mother's Day, come by. The party will be from 11 till 3. And some of us will be drinking the champagne punch after that. But anyway, be sure and come by. Be sure and come by on Mother's Day. It'll be a good time. I'm going to talk about a couple other sun things, and then we'll go back to more of the shade. This is one of the biggest and showiest of the salvias. This is Salvia indigo spires. And if you want a big plant that produces thousands of flowers, that comes back dependably year after year, although after 4 or 5 years you want to divide it a bit, plant indigo spires. It gets about this tall, gets about this big around, and for the money, it gives you the biggest show of probably just about any perennial that you could put out there. Loves the full sun. It'll droop in the drought, but it will come back when you water it. Butterflies absolutely love it, even though it's not red or orange. The hummingbirds like it. It's a great breakthrough. It's a hybrid that came out of the Huntington Gardens, And it's a hybrid, and I don't think Patrick put one in here, but if you go out into the parking lot and look to the left, you're going to see a different salvia that has a rich purple flower and a fuzzier leaf that's about this tall, called Salvia granitica. That's actually one that will grow in the shade as well as in the sun. But they hybridized, they crossed that plant with our native Salvia farinacea. This is the plant they came up with, Salvia indigo spires. Now about 2 years ago, they came out with a mid-size version. Again, this thing's going to be this tall. If you want one that only gets about this tall, get mystic spires, Salvia mystic spires. And again, same great heads of flowers, all the other good qualities, it just doesn't get quite as big. But again, for the person that tells me, I just don't have any luck growing flowers, you've got a sunny yard, plant this. If you can't grow this, move to an apartment. You're not cut out to be a gardener. It's just a good, hardy, easy plant to grow. Yeah, I'm going to talk about pentas in just a minute. I want to talk about these two guys and a couple other things first. Again, this is a good sized plant, and if you look out at the ones in our parking lot, you can see what it grows into. But these two plants represent a group of plants that are commonly called angel trumpets. Now, there are two different flowering habits, so to speak. The daturas produce a flower that tends to stand up a little bit more like this. The brugmansias tend to produce flowers that hang down like these. Again, don't judge the plant by how it looks in this pot. Be sure before you leave that you walk out and look in the parking lot. We have several of these out there. The ones that didn't freeze back, there's a pure white one out there that I didn't look at it this morning. Yesterday it had about 100 flowers open on it. And again, you want something that'll stop traffic. This is going to make a plant about 6-8 feet tall in San Antonio. It's going to get about this big around, and it's literally going to have hundreds of flowers on it. The first one of the white brugmansias that we had, I don't remember who gave it to us, but it was in a small wash tub about this big around. When it came into flower, we counted 98 the big white flowers on it at one time. So, you know, it just, for the size of the plant, produces more big flowers than anything else I can think of. A few years ago, I had the pleasure of taking a vacation, doing a little sailing in the Caribbean, and on the island of the Barbados, we saw these in a kind of pink form growing in front of a house, and down there where they never froze, those things are probably 15, 18 feet tall, probably 20 feet wide, and just an incredible mass of flowers. Here, they're going to freeze back when we have weather that gets below about 28 degrees or so. But they come back out. This is one that I would mulch. But if you want to grow the angel trumpets, again, the brugmansias are the ones that hang down. The daturas are the ones that have upright flowers.
What do you call that?
This is called datura, D-A-T-U-R-A.
Do they like full sun?
They like full sun. The brugmansias especially will grow in partial shade, but the more sun, the more flowers.
I've had the purple one, and every afternoon it just...
Whole nother topic. When you have things that like the sun but consistently droop in the afternoon, what that often tells me is they've got a shallow root system. And they grew up being watered frequently and lightly, so all the roots are in that upper inch or two of the soil. The correct way to water, well, really all plants, other perhaps figs, is to water them really, 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 really deeply when you water them, so they get a real deep root system. And if you got a real deep root system, they won't droop real badly. If they have a shallow root system, yeah, they're going to droop in the afternoon heat. Now, on this one in particular, don't eat the foliage. Not that you would. But the white form of this is what they call loco weed. That, yeah. Anyway, enough said. It's what it does to cows if they're stupid enough to eat it. Cows are stupid enough to eat almost anything. But beautiful flowers and certainly worth growing. I'm not going to try to move this. This is a canna. And there are, again, you know, when I first spent summers with my grandparents out in Dallas, fell in love with cannas. The only cannas that you ever saw were about this big around. But the Dallas Parks Department, that was their standard planting. They did 3 tiers of things. They did the Empress Candlestick, about 8 feet tall, bright yellow flowers, cannas at the mid-level, and copper plants in front of it. And I decided cannas were a pretty good plant then because they were so tough and durable. Over the intervening years, cannas are now coming in almost all sizes. Most of the greenleaf cannas that we get are more compact plants that only grow about this tall. They come in a wide range of colors. This series is called Tropicana. The original Tropicanas were all orange. This year I think we'll see some Tropicanas that are yellow and maybe some Tropicanas that are red. But if you're looking